Thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the Bunker Labs Rapid City virtual Bunker Brews for April 2020, where we hope today to give you the answer to the question, what now? Before we get started, I got a little bit of housekeeping for you. First off, please mute your mics while we're going. We'll get into some Q&A here in a little while, but please mute them for now so we can keep the background noise to a minimum. Please use the chat early and often. We'll discuss some things with Tom here, and then we're going to spend a lot of our time on your questions. So please throw them in the chat box, and we will get to those here shortly. You should also keep an eye on the chat window, so have that open on the side of your screen, because as I kind of give you some information, you're going to have some links show up and some more information about Bunker Labs and Elevate Rapid City. All right, so let's start with some intro. We're going to flip over to some slides here. Thank you very much. So first, on behalf of the Bunker Labs team, thank you for joining us, and know that you, your business, and your families have been on our minds. We want you to know that we're here to support you in any way that we can. We're really honored that you chose to tune in with us today. My name is Mitch Nightingale, and I am one of 3 city leaders for Bunker Labs Rapid City. We're all volunteers. Somewhere out there in cyberspace, I see them, they've joined us, are my 2 colleagues, Colonel Retired David Neefsey and Chief Warrant Officer 4 John Schneider. We're excited to bring a chapter to our community. We really appreciate you joining us. I'm hoping there's some of you on the call today that have never heard of Bunker Labs, and that's awesome. So I want to welcome you and give you just a quick background. We're a 501c3 national nonprofit that's a network of military-connected entrepreneurs. Our mission, as you can see there, is to connect our entrepreneurs. We do that through 3 tasks: inspiring our community, equipping our program participants, and connecting entrepreneurs. Talk a little bit about our impact. We're committed to seeing that every entrepreneur has what they need to start their own business. They have the network, they have the tools, and they have the resources. You can see on the screen there some of the success we've had nationally, and we strive to do better each and every day. You can see there over 1,000 jobs created for veterans and military spouses, close to 30,000 RSVPs. I bet this information is lagging behind all the virtual events we've done, so I bet we're over 30,000 now. And so Bunker Labs only started 5 years ago, and already making a huge impact. Through that impact, we do that through our programs. Here locally in Rapid City, we've got Launch Lab Online, Bunker Brews, which is what we're doing today, and Veterans in Residence. I'm going to give you just a quick note on each of these, then we'll get started with our topic for today. First, I want to just note that you do not have to have any connection to the military to participate in most of these programs. And we want and need all of the community to participate in these programs. We need other entrepreneurs, we need thought leaders, we need those startup resources, everybody involved. And so anytime you see anything, please sign up for our newsletter. Please participate in any of these things. I'll start with Launch Lab Online. I can't recommend this program enough. This is online modules, series of videos that really walk you through idea to invoice. And I kind of joke that what this does more than anything is it talks you out of starting a small business. But in a good way. It really asks you some pointed questions about what's your personal finances look like, because you're probably going to be putting some of your own money towards these things. Really, I'd love you to go check that out. You're already online today, so right after we're done here, go out and sign up and try one of those modules, because being military, I've done a lot of online training, and a lot of it is terrible, and I can tell you that these are pretty good. Let's move on to Veterans in Residence. Really excited about this. So Rapid City is going to be the first chapter in the country to host a Veterans in Residence program that doesn't have a WeWork facility. We'll host this out of Ascent Innovation, the startup incubator. This is going to be a 5-month cohort. The next one starting in July. It'll run July to December. Maybe some of it's going to be virtually, we'll see. But we really want to start our first cohort off with a bang. So you can see in the chat as well as on the screen the link to do that. Please get out there and fill out that simple application. They're open through April 26th. It's not binding to fill out the application. We'll get back in touch with you, but really encourage you, if you are anywhere in the startup process, please look at that because it's going to be a great time and a great program. Lastly, what we're here for today is Bunker Brews. This is our 4th event, our first one virtually. Happy to continue to go that way. This is really where we connect, equip, and inspire. We had a great launch in February, over 75 people. Prior to that, December and October were great events. Just a great time, free food, free drinks, a little bit of a program, and then a lot of networking with your fellow entrepreneurs and thought leaders. To stay informed on all that stuff, you can go out to Bunker Labs and search for us at our location, Bunker Labs Rapid City, and sign up for our local newsletter, and you'll get all the information. All right, geez, I'm already tired. I talked a lot there. So let's introduce our speaker for today. Tom Johnson joined the Rapid City community in October of last year as the first full-time CEO of Elevate Rapid City. He's worked in economic development at every level, including running the Economic Development Office for the state of Wyoming. His last position was the Economic Development Director for Colorado State University. Little did he know when he took this job that he would be leading the charge to keep our economy going in a pandemic. And he can't hear you right now because you're muted, but please help me welcome Tom Johnson. All right, so we should be back live on our screen. Thanks for clapping, everybody. I see that. Tom, we're honored to have you with us today. So let's just dive in, shall we? Appreciate you joining us today. If you are a Rapid City local and you follow the Elevate Rapid City page, Tom's been in front of this microphone a lot, actually. So we're going to do a little Q&A, just you and me to start, and then we'll open it up to the group. To start, Tom, I'd like to not talk about viruses for a minute, if that's all right with you.
That's great.
So I think there's part of this audience, or maybe a lot of it, that doesn't really even have the background of Elevate Rapid City. Can you just give us the vision and the background of Elevate Rapid City and kind of where you're going to go, and also what organizations are involved?
Sure. I start the question by saying, when I first got off the saying, thanks to Bunker Labs and what you guys do. Thanks for coming to Rapid City, doing this entrepreneurship stuff in Rapid City. We need you here. We love you here, and I want to say thanks just out of the gate. Let me talk about Elevate Rapid City. Imagine a future in which you combined the networking and advocacy of the Chamber of Commerce, the power there, combined it with the capital resources of an economic development organization, and then supercharged it with an accelerator and entrepreneurship, and then maybe mixed in some fuel injection of a military community, the National Guard, and just put it all into one stew, boil it around, and you get a nice little concoction, pretty tasty. That's what Elevate Rapid City is. So we're taking the best of many organizations that have been trying to influence the economy of the Black Hills and the region and align them in one direction.
I think people are having trouble hearing you, Tom, so we're going to move this a little closer. You might have to speak up a little bit.
Oh God, do I have to give that speech again? Do I need to give that again?
If people get most of the gist of that. All right, Tom, you got to speak up for the rest of it, though. But
okay.
Good on that one?
Yeah. Unless folks didn't catch it. But basically, we're taking what's best of several organizations: the Chamber of Commerce, economic development, innovation, entrepreneurship, and really inside of a community made up of a lot of veterans and an Air Force base, mixing that together and trying to really push that forward and going in the same direction.
All right, great. Thumbs up. Can people hear Tom now? Is that a little better?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks for that on-the-spot feedback. I'm looking at my phone not because I'm playing Angry Birds, but because I'm keeping track of the chat and things like that, so we can keep moving here. So, all right, let's go on to the next question. So, Tom, with all these organizations merging under one roof, you've been working hard to structure Elevate to be as efficient and effective as possible. Can you talk about your pillars under Elevate Rapid City?
Yeah, we have 6, if you include the military affairs piece of it, but then I deal with the other 5. So we've got economic development, innovation, entrepreneurship. We've got small business, and then we've got business advocacy and quality growth, and then finally workforce development and talent attraction. So we're trying to push those together, make them work together, and align them in the right direction so that we can accomplish really our goals, which is to elevate the whole region for everybody. We've got goals around job growth, place, entrepreneurship, and those sorts of things. But our metrics, we have to execute that through these pillars, and so we're trying to put these work plans together through each pillar, bring them together, fuse them together, if you will, and by that accomplish the whole goal.
All right. Yeah, super exciting stuff. All right, Tom, we want to get into the Q&A as quick as possible, but we probably should address COVID-19 just a little bit here. So can you talk a little bit about how you see it affecting us locally? And then Elevate Rapid City is doing a lot of things right now to try to get out in front of this. Can you talk a little bit about what you see Elevate doing to help with this situation?
I've talked to our senators and the hospital here, and if anybody tries to tell you they know what's going to happen with the curve and when it's going to stop, they're not accurate. We just don't know. It depends on what happens with social distancing. But the best we can tell, we're likely through this in the next 3 months on the other side. So at Elevate Rapid City, we brought our staff together about a month ago, and we thought, okay, what can we do in an environment in which we can't gather with more than 10 people? We do a lot of events, a lot of training, and we knew that wasn't possible anymore. So our staff came together and said, okay, let's try to move all of that online. And so if you look at what we've been doing a lot of town halls. So last week I had Senator Thune on with a Q&A town hall, much like this. We've done trainings with our medical community to talk to the businesses directly. And so we're moving a lot of the stuff we normally would have done externally, online, and it's been going well. These Q&As are attended by several hundred up to 1,000. So we've gotten our business community engaged. They're asking a lot of questions. So we moved a lot of that stuff online. We've also recognized too that in an instance where you've got to quickly social distance, how could we keep our business community going? And so we established the Rapid City To Go page, which allows businesses to say that they're open, what social distancing they're following right now. We can do curbside pickup. If you're a store that's open and you want to have customers in, no more than 10. So we've allowed the community to go to that page and find out who's doing what. And I think we've only had that on for about 2 weeks. We've turned the volume up on that. And we've already got 11,000 members in 2 weeks in the community. We've also established a emergency bridge loan program. I've talked to the SBA. That money's likely not getting out on the street for another 45 to 60 days. And so we came in with some of our capital and we did these emergency bridge loan programs, $15,000 per business for 120 days interest free. And hopefully that'll be taken out by the SBA. And so we're pulling capital, we're moving training online, we're trying to promote and advocate. But I would say the best thing we can do in a time like this, and we're trying to do this, is to project I think a sentiment of calm, and that we're going to continue to get through this and go business as usual to the extent that we can, and just recognize that we're all in this together.
Great. All right, so everybody, I'm going to ask Tom another question here because I don't see anything in the chat. So please get your questions into the chat and we'll get those going. So Tom, you talked a little bit about that bridge loan. Can you talk a little bit more about what you see as the strategy for, you mentioned the SBA rolling out their money, and what you think the bridge loan is designed to do locally?
Thanks. Really, it's meant to fill that gap. The amount of capital we put on the street is about $750,000. We had toyed with making it more than $1 million, but we thought, okay, the SBA money really is coming in. It's going to be in, at that time, we didn't know if it was going to be 20 days or frankly 120 days. And so we thought, well, how can we get our businesses some dollars to essentially bridge that gap? And we thought, okay, what's the maximum amount we can do here? Well, we could probably do somewhere between 10 and 20. That'll probably get them through some of their expenses, not all of them, but some of their expenses through the next 60 days. As I've talked to our senators and I've talked to the SBA, it seems like they're going as fast as they can. They're getting criticized right now in the media for not being able to get this program out as quick as possible. But I think, when you have this kind of a stimulus that you've never seen in government before, there's going to be some bumps in the road. So I'd like to cut the SBA a little bit of a break here for once and not criticize the federal government so much, and just say, this loan was intended to bridge the gap between when that SBA money comes in. And we think it's doing that. We've already made, I want to say, and you probably know this, Mitch, I think over 10 loans, and they've run the gamut from restaurants to construction to manufacturing. And so I think we're proud right now that we've been able to come in and help businesses stay afloat until this SBA money comes in.
Great. I just got a note, if I could have my admin staff check the waiting room. It sounds like there's still some more people waiting in the waiting room to bring us in, please. We'll get a few more on here. So, all right, let me get back. All right, question from the crowd here. Tom, what do you feel has been the biggest learning point for the Elevate team through this transition? And what lesson would you give to startups to prep for crisis, either now, ongoing, and on into the future?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think there's an easy or a right answer. There's just answers to varying degrees. I think the big lesson for me is, I'm going to bring up Mike Tyson, and I've done this in a few talks before. Mike Tyson has done a lot in his life, but one of the things, he had this quote that I always am reminded of. He said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. That usually happens in round one. And so you've got this elegant strategic plan that we've got, 5-year plan, and we're merging and just change management theory out there. And you've got this idea of how you're going to handle it, and you're meeting with teams and people, and you just when you think you've got it worked out, this plan's going to go the way you want, you get punched in the face, whether it's the coronavirus or something else. You get punched in the mouth. And so the ability to adapt, I think, has been the biggest lesson for us. And so I'm reminded of my days at Colorado State University. Frankly, I was exposed to a guy there. Maybe exposed, not the right word at the time of pandemics, but I had the ability to talk to a guy who he was world class in scenario planning, and we would have these conversations about strategic planning. And he would work with Fortune 500 companies and governments around the world. I think he's worked with Apple Computers numerous times to do scenarios. And so what he would do is he would say, I'm not going to do a best, middle, and worst case. What I'm going to do is look at 5 or 6 scenarios, and I'm going to talk with management and everybody from the rank and file all the way up to the CEO. And we're going to have a conversation around what scenarios could affect this organization from external forces. And so he would often say, okay, here's the 5 or 6 scenarios that are going to play out with these external forces. So you could use, for example, with Elevate, our investment levels. So if you're a startup organization, it might be funding, Series A, Series B, angel capital. So for Elevate, it's our different investment levels. And so you might have scenarios that say, what happens in a situation in which you've got a pandemic, and have you planned for a scenario that looks like that when your revenues are going to plummet, or when you're not going to get your funding, in the time in which you thought. Maybe your Series B round's not going to come in. And so to have these different scenarios, and then to work back and work through what actions you're doing now that'll allow you to react to the market no matter what direction it goes. And so he would encourage organizations like Apple to say, okay, here's the 5 scenarios that we're looking at. This could happen in a black swan environment. This could happen in a best case environment. And how do we adjust our work plan, our day-to-day activities, so that we can react to any of those markets? So it allows you to have the best of both worlds, I think. You've got your plan, you've looked through your scenarios, but you're also reacting to real-world data and real-time markets and adjusting. And I think as an entrepreneur, and that's really where I think you guys have the biggest interest. You're not here to listen about how nonprofits fundraise. I think as an entrepreneur, you've got to be flexible. You're going to get punched in the face numerous times, round 1, round 6, round 10. This is a long-term struggle and fight. And so you've got to be flexible, but just to think through, you're not going to always project the future. We have a hard time as human beings, as governments or businesses, knowing what's going to happen in the future. But we can plan for a multiplicity of environments and scenarios and try to adjust our sails so that we can react to whatever the market throws at us.
Thank you, Sean, for that question. Tom, we've started with this, but can you specifically explain what entities are under Elevate and how they work together within the community? That question's from John.
Yeah, there's the direct organizations that were merged together, which was the Chamber of Commerce. We're in the process of the Ascent Innovation Group and the Economic Development Foundation coming into that. The Economic Development Partnership and the Chamber of Commerce. We also have a tangential relationship with Ellsworth Development Authority. We help fund them. They get money from the state as well. So really, depending on how you look at it, it's 4 to 5. But I would say just in terms of our capacity, it's hundreds of organizations. It's dozens of organizations and individuals coming together under the umbrella of Elevate and harnessing that horsepower to go in the right direction. So for an example, the Chamber of Commerce was merged into Elevate Rapid City. They've got an army of volunteers and committees. So harnessing the power of all those individuals to go forward is part of it. So although it's 4 to 5, depending on how you look at it, it really is hundreds and dozens more.
Question from David here, and keep those questions coming, please. Keeping the team informed, especially with the virus circumstances, requires frequent communication. What forums could and should we be tying into?
From a technical standpoint?
I think just in terms of communication and knowing the right and the.
Well, this is a fascinating question, and I've thought about it numerous times. You know, you've got, when you're working remote, and many of you I'm sure are doing this, right? You've told your staffs to work remotely. And in my management career, as I'm getting older myself, you'll run into part of your workforce who may not be the most adept with technology. I've run into some folks who have never done a Zoom call before last week. And so you have maybe workers who might even be, you know, boomers, and you've got these millennials or the Generation Z, and that might be in the same organization. And so when you're used to getting together on site and having communication face to face like we are now through this barrier that's protecting us, I might add, you want to find a platform and platforms that work for everybody. And so as you're thinking about what to use, you might think, oh, you know, let's just go to the latest technological solution, right? Maybe it's a work Teams, but if one of your employees has never done that before, and she's just got to the point, or he's got to the point where maybe they just have discovered even texting, you know, that can be a scenario in which you may not be able to get everybody on the same page. So I try to think about communication through multiple platforms, both to our external audiences and internally. And so, you know, a group text might work to get everybody on the same page. Millennials, they know how to text, and even the boomers can text. So that's one way we've done it, is through group text if you're not checking your email, because some folks aren't checking their email right now. So that's a real-time way. But there are a lot of software environments in which you can do chats, real-time, Zoom calls. So I think multiple platforms work, but you want to find something that everybody is comfortable with, because I think you're seeing now, as we all do this remote work, that some folks are more comfortable with this than others.
All right. Thank you. My next question from Justin, who I happen to know works in talent attraction, so he's got a very pointed question for you. One pillar within Elevate is to develop and build the Rapid City workforce. What steps are you taking to continue to fill this pipeline during this current state of affairs?
You know, that's a question that, Justin, that keeps me up at night. Honestly, right now, we were in a situation when right before this crisis, we were going to hire somebody to do workforce development and talent attraction. And we had plans. We've got these elegant plans to do externships and serve as a gateway with South Dakota School of Mines and Black Hills State. And we had these plans drawn up to work with them on program development, both for associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees, to respond to the highest demand occupations in the area. Nursing's at the top of that list. So we had all these grand plans to do all these things. That's now out the window for a little while. So we're readjusting, and again, using the tools that we have. We know we can't get together in larger groups than 10. So we can bring some of those trainings online. So what we're doing right now is recognizing that the most immediate need for an employer in the workforce are twofold. One, can I keep my employees during this crisis? And so we've been an educational resource for both the SBA disaster loan and the payroll protection loan, because they're two separate beasts, and we can talk about the differences of those if we want today. But those are two different beasts. Which one should you use? And how much cash do you have? I mean, I had conversations with entrepreneurs about working capital, going back to, you know, inventory management, accruals. How much cash do I have? You know, the average business that I read the other day has about 27 days cash left. So it's good that we have these bridge loans. So having those kind of conversations, serving as an educational resource for those. But then also the people side. I've gotten calls from individuals that are saying, hey, I've lost my job. I don't know where to go for unemployment benefits. And so you'd think that they would have already Googled that, but they haven't. They want a person to tell them, hey, here's where I go. So we're serving as that resource as well. So right now we're trying to get those employers to keep that workforce, because we know the SBA is going to come in with that protection. But we're also talking to individuals about, if you've lost your job, you're eligible for reemployment. They call it reemployment here in South Dakota, but many of them know that as unemployment. And then we get this question too, because a lot of entrepreneurs are sole proprietors. And the stimulus package expanded those benefits for offices at the state to expand unemployment and reemployment insurance to sole proprietors and those that are self-employed. I think that's an important point. Those rules haven't come out yet from the feds. We think they're going to be right around Easter. But that's a really important point for those that work with entrepreneurs or who might be entrepreneurs, you're self-employed or you're sole proprietor. Those benefits are there for you as well because you're being affected by this crisis. And so, Justin, there's not an easy answer to that. What we know right now, we've got to pivot from our elegant plans to how do we help those businesses keep those people on right now. We know those resources and also those individuals that maybe are going to lose their jobs or could lose their jobs. And then that involves all these entrepreneurs who are trying to start their lives and start these great companies. We know that the federal government is going to protect them as well. So making sure that they know we're here for them and that also that those dollars are coming in. So we've sort of had to just triage this right now. But I think, again, if my predictions are right, and of course everybody's biased to their own projections, I think 90 days we're going to be on the other side of this. Well, and I think this is where your question is really going. We're going to have to pivot at that point back to, okay, what is the unemployment rate? And we have databases with real-time data with job openings, so we'll be able to figure out, okay, what is the market doing right now post coronavirus? I think it's really important to make the best decisions with data in the market right now. So again, I'm not a big fan of plans that are developed from the top down, these elegant plans. We want to get data right from the market 90 days from now, which we can figure out what the market's telling us, who's out there on the street unemployed, what those needs are, and then to try to connect those dots again. So not an easy answer.
And you did mention sole proprietors. I believe the SBA, they opened it up to sole proprietors as of this Friday the 10th.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for the loans too. So sole proprietors can not only be protected through unemployment, but they're protected through these loan programs as well.
From the Bunker Labs North region, they were up here with us in February, and they met you at that time, Tom. They asked, what have you learned about the Rapid City community and its potential since joining the community?
Another great question. I think, again, if we're having this conversation outside of a coronavirus pandemic, I think I'll try to answer that first, because everything changes when you're in the middle of this. I would say Rapid City is large, and the Black Hills have largely still been undiscovered by the technology community, by the tech workforce, outside of the folks that are here already. So we've got a world-class university in South Dakota School of Mines, and I know you're a graduate of that. I'm sorry to throw it out, but they really are world-class. We're putting graduates of world-class institutions to show a list of where our are going right now. It is into world-class companies all over the world, Google, Facebook, Garmin, and all. And so we've got a world-class university. It took me 3 or 4 months to get on my mountain bike and start to see how many actual trails that were to bike. And it's incredible. I mean, I did from Colorado, in which one of my hobbies is to try to do all these 14ers. They climb these mountains of 14,000 feet. And every time you would go to the trail, there would be 200 people to use. It was like a city park, in a mountain city park. That's what it felt like. It was so crowded. And when you get to the Black Hills and you go to a trailhead and you're the only person there mountain biking, and you see those athletes are world class. And often, actually, the trails here are even better than some of the stuff you see in Colorado or other places in the United States. You recognize that it's just a matter of time, I think, before some of workers recognize this and want to be here. And we're seeing this with companies like Property Mill, for instance. They're drawing folks from Portland and Raleigh and Los Angeles, San Diego already. So I think you're going to, the next 10 years, assuming we get through this crisis and things go back to normal, you're going to see that quality of life that really is the next currency for economic development really start to show itself, and Rapid City start to be a magnet for that. We're 5 to 6 hours from everywhere. It's a blessing and a curse. But part of that issue is that a lot of folks don't know about us unless they're going to Mount Rushmore. And so I think that's going to be the hurdle, is we are somewhat isolated. We have an MSA or a trade area that's around 300 to 400,000. A lot of people still don't know, but when they come here and they see that, it's going to change in the next 10 years.
Awesome, thank you. I got distracted there. All right, so another question from John. Tom, after meeting with you prior to the official chat launch in February, you recommended reading Friend of a Friend by David Burkus. Since we're practicing social distancing in a different environment, what are you currently reading or do you recommend?
Well, this could be ironic because I'm reading a book called Contagious right now, but it's not about viruses. It's about how ideas become viral. And I would recommend it. Many probably read the book Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, which is a real layman's, really layman's point of view on how things become viral. Well, the work that Malcolm Gladwell based that book on comes from a actual PhD. That PhD actually put a book out that's much more detailed and prescriptive and descriptive, frankly. Malcolm Gladwell is very good at telling the human story, which is why his books are so popular. I recommend this book, Contagious, because it actually, if you're a leader or a decision maker, or frankly, anybody that's concerned with your company going viral, your ideas going viral, your stories going viral, this book allows you to focus on what are those things that make TED Talks go viral? What are those things that make ideas go viral, companies go viral, anything, your speech at your staff meeting go viral? He breaks it down into 5 categories, and he really gets scientific about this. It's not a book for scientists. It really is a layman's book too, but it's about 5 to 10-fold better than Malcolm Gladwell's book, because it actually tells you, here are the things you can do to make your idea more contagious. And I guess I could give you the ending here, but something, I'll just give you a couple examples. So one thing is to have emotion tied to it. And you'll notice things that are shared on articles on the internet or from the New York Times. They typically have a lot of these points around them, and one of them is emotion. And so if you can link your idea or your product to some sort of emotion, it's going to go viral more often. The other thing is practical value. So if your idea, your company, your story has practical value for somebody, then it's going to go viral. So what we've done is we've taken some of these concepts from this book, and we've said, elevate and tell stories about the success of the Black Hills in Rapid City. Anytime we tell a story, we want to incorporate these 5 points. Anytime we do an event, we want to incorporate these 5 points. Anytime we have a meeting like this or a Zoom call, we want to incorporate those 5 points. So subject matter has to have some of those points, topic. In fact, I probably violated some of those things because I'm not really telling enough stories right now. I'm being a little too technical probably in this interview, Mitch. I could probably tell a few more stories, but I think that's something that we're reading now. I think at least a few of us that I talked to, we're reading that book and going back to that book. So that's what I'm reading right now. Although I would recommend Friend of a Friend to get ready for post-coronavirus social networking and social network analysis.
All right. This is Catherine. What resources will you use to accomplish all this? We just had a conversation about this yesterday. And could Elevate create a post-COVID-19 dashboard for local businesses in the community to monitor?
Yeah, I think
Hello, everyone. I think we're having some connectivity issues and things seem to be frozen. So if you could just hang with us, I think that the entire country is on some Zoom connection or another. So hopefully we'll be back soon. In the meantime, if you can still hear and see me, if you have any questions about Bunker Labs, we're happy to answer them. I turned a lot of your video off in an effort to head off the problem earlier. So feel free to ask your question in the chat and we'll do what we can. It was a great conversation. We had met Tom before and he's absolutely fascinating. And so hopefully we'll be able to get him back on. So we're contacting Mitch through our back channel method. And in the meantime, happy to answer any questions. I should introduce myself. I'm Chris Carlson. I'm the Regional Experience Director for the North Region, and we are happy to be blazing a virtual path with our programming, and Rapid City is one of the first ones. Can everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay, good. Just checking. Oh, we might have Mitch and back up, and I'll unmute you.
I think so.
There you go. You're back up, gentlemen. I'll hand it back off to you. I was much less entertaining than you.
Okay. All of a sudden, our screen went to a completely different shot. And we kept talking. We weren't sure if you could hear us, but
no, it was great. Carry on.
So I think the question was around, could we create a real-time dashboard? I think the answer is yes. We've got access to some real-time data around what's going on in the economy. And so I think we could create a dashboard around that. I think we could also connect resources too. I think we could connect employers with employees in an efficient way, especially those high demand occupations as we come out. I don't think we're going to know how this is going to quite affect us. So I think we're still in the capital mode right now, trying to get businesses through to the capital side. But I think we definitely have a responsibility in making sure folks have access to this data. You know, and a good example of this is the SBA came out with this payroll protection loan program a couple weeks ago. They kind of had the feelings of it. So I went on with a Q&A with Representative Dusty Johnson. And so he had data at that point in time that was this. And then a week later, I went on with Senator Thune, and his data was a little more firmed up. And so we were able to give the folks real-time data right then. And then the day after, we had the SBA on, and they literally changed the interest rate on the payroll protection program 20 minutes before she went on the air. So the SBA person who's responsible for this area to administer and work through that program had the interest rate changed 20 minutes before she went on air. So stuff is changing, data is coming in, and so we were able to put her on right now and do that. So I'd like to think that also it's not just about secondary data having a dashboard, but it's also about getting people in front of other people, even if we can't be in the same room, and having conversations that are meaningful about what's happening in the market too.
Absolutely, yeah. Michelle Kane from the Brews Business Center. I guess you can all see this in the chat, but I'll share it with Tom. So sole proprietors can apply for the PPP now with their lender. It's independent contractors that can start applying this Friday, April 10th. So thanks for that, Michelle. I don't see any questions yet, so keep them coming. So I've got one for you, Tom. You mentioned your time at Colorado State University, and I mentioned a little bit about you being at all levels in the state of Wyoming. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and how that's kind of framed your state of mind coming into this job?
Yeah, I think you don't realize how old you are until you get into a job like this, and then you look back at your career and you realize, gosh, I've been doing this for 20 some years. And you don't realize at the time when you're in your 20s and you're arguing with somebody over membership when you're 25, that experience will help you when you're older. Like right now, as you're going through a crisis and you're on the phone with somebody who's not wanting to invest in the organization because they're going through a cash flow issue. So you're using all these experiences throughout your life that inform you, and they're sort of like layers. You've got this layer, you put this layer on, and eventually you become, I think, sort of possibly a self-actualized economic and community developer and leader, frankly, too. You're always trying to learn, but I think the experiences at Wyoming, we had to cut during the 2008 crisis. And so we had to cut our budgets by 35%. We had to lay off a significant amount of people, do furloughs, take pay cuts. That certainly helped me in a time like this as I advise businesses. And then at Colorado State, just getting, exposed to world-class experts in their field. I would always be surprised at how specific these domains were, so somebody that had done their PhD in a very, very small topic, I thought that they would have more knowledge about some general things. But the good news of that was some of these topics were very fascinating. So social network analysis, I got exposed to somebody who their whole life was devoted to how do social networks help you make decisions, spread ideas. And then the person I mentioned around scenario planning, I got exposed to strategic doing there. So it helped me understand the pitfalls of over planning or believing that your plan was going to go exactly the way you had. So I think adaptability in the face of crisis is something that I didn't realize at the time in my career, but it's helped me during this time, specifically on the merger. You know, mergers are crisis. Before the coronavirus, just merging three organizations together is a crisis for some people because it's changing their role. So just, you know, I didn't realize how your experiences or my experiences in my other jobs would have prepared me for this. But I think that's true with everybody. You know, Mitch, your time in the military has made you, in my view, amazing at things like logistics and details. And so, you know, I'm just amazed at the ability of folks like you to handle details that, you know, I'm a bigger picture guy. So I think everybody has, you know, those kind of experiences, certainly not just me.
Sure. Kate has another question. I've always been interested in infrastructure development. What do you see as the grand scheme and timeline for better connecting the Denver area to Rapid City?
Yeah, I think, again, if we think about social networks, it's probably going to take one company to do it, and it'll probably be related to a social network. So we found that usually folks want to come to a place that they have some familiarity with. So if you vacation in the Black Hills, you went to school in the Black Hills, if I were to call you today and say, hey, would you be interested in doing something else in the Black Hills, your answer is probably going to say yes. You're probably going to say yes. That's going to be your answer. And so what I think it'll be, and this was our experience too, if you think about the Front Range, specifically, let's think about Fort Collins. So, you know, Denver is growing and growing, but, you know, Fort Collins was always a little bit of a sleepy kind of cow town, an ag community, somewhat like, I wouldn't say exactly like Rapid City because it's more of a tourist place, but Fort Collins has those foothills and all those amenities and the bike trails and the beer pubs and the coffee shops. This is what you're seeing happening kind of in Rapid City right now. You're starting to see this kind of creep up in those amenities. It had all that. It took just a couple companies to make a decision about coming to Fort Collins. And many of you that have ever studied this, you'll remember it was when HP went to Fort Collins. Hewlett-Packard decided to locate a facility in Fort Collins. That was the beginning of this immigration of the technology workers to that area. And then Woodward came in later, and you saw more of that happen in the area. And so it's going to take one company like that to make a decision that the quality of life of the Black Hills is the kind of place they want their workers to have access. And the good news was in the airport too. So we've got direct flights, you know, once this crisis is over, we've got direct flights from Chicago and Minneapolis and Denver. So my guess is in Phoenix, Salt Lake, here's my guess. Again, you never know what the future is going to hold, but it's probably going to be a company that has headquarters in either Minneapolis, Chicago, Denver, Salt Lake, or one of those direct flights that makes a decision that they want to put a larger facility, which then brings these tech workers here. I think that's going to be the one point where you see the dam break. The other thing that could happen, though, Mitch, too, is they're going to pass another stimulus package on top of this one. And my guess is it's going to be around $2 to $3 trillion. And so I would think it would benefit us to get with our federal representatives and talk about how those infrastructure dollars could help West River, specifically the Black Hills. And I think we've got a lot of experience here with the federal government, with Ellsworth and what they've done and the expansion there. Rapid City would be a great place for the federal government to put more R&D facilities. So you could see also the federal government invest more dollars, not just in Ellsworth, but in other areas that might dovetail with School of Mines and some of those expertise. If you've looked at what happens when the federal government puts R&D into a place, it also has those same effects that you could have with a technology company. So that would be my guess is how it's going to go. I would be remiss, though, if I don't say also you're going to have a slow build of entrepreneurship as the Ascent, and Mitch, you know this, the Ascent Innovation Center, phase 1, phase 2, down the road, phase 3. You'll have that slow build, too. So if you get one of these guys coming in, a company that starts it, you also have it grown from inside, from the entrepreneurship. And so it's certainly, you can't attract businesses and have that be your way to prosperity. So you're going to get one of these that'll put you over the top, but you got this slow build up too of entrepreneurship that kind of builds up as well.
little water, Tom? I've been talking pretty straight here.
Oh, yeah, I'll take some.
I'll get to the next question from Ed. This is about the PPP. And Ed, I'll give Tom a shot at this, but we might have to give you a better expert to give you this answer. So from what we know, larger banks like, say, US Bank aren't taking applications for partnerships. We have heard that some multi-owner businesses have been able to apply through local community type banks. And then Leah replied, Black Hills Federal Credit Union is taking the PPP applications. So yeah, any further to say on that?
Yeah, I've talked to about 5 or 6 businesses in the last 2 or 3 days, and you hear a mixed comments. And so I have heard from a couple that are saying, hey, listen, even though this is out there, the banks right now are not moving on it. They're waiting to get more guidance. They're just not moving on it. I've heard some larger companies say that right now banks are not going to extend their lines of credit. They're lucky right now if, actually offer new lines of credit. They're lucky if they get an extension on their existing line. So this idea that it's going perfectly well right now in the market, it depends on who you talk to. You hear some stories that it's going well. Some of our local banks have been able to, I think, like Black Hills Community Bank has been able to move because they're a little more nimble. Some of these larger banks, I think, are struggling a little bit with it because they're waiting for guidance. So I would say it doesn't hurt to apply for both. You can go directly to the SBA for the disaster loan right now. Those can be up to $2 million. They can be termed out to 30 years. The interest rate for nonprofits are 3.7. For for-profits and businesses, it's 2.75. So you can be pretty flexible with those terms. So you can go directly to the SBA without going through your bank if you go the disaster route. I would encourage you not to look at that, then also look at the PPP, because that's where you go to your bank and they utilize the 7A program in it's the 7A program really on steroids. And so those can be up to, I believe, 10 million, but they're only 2 years in terms of terms. And the interest rate's now at 1. It was up to 4. They turned it down to 0.5. Now it's back up to 1. So you can do both at the same time. You can go for the disaster loan directly to the SBA, and you can also work with your bank on the PPP. There's no reason for you to have to choose one over the other right now. You can go in both directions. So if you're feeling like the bank that you're working with is not able to move on that, there's not a reason why you couldn't move to the disaster loan too.
Looks like Matt's going to take care of some of that answer as well. Okay, I'm going to get these other 2 questions here real quick, and then we'll close up. So thank you, everybody. Please keep adding your questions to the chat, and we will answer them either on the live feed or through contact with you. From TB, during this COVID-19 situation, has your relationship with the city and businesses been stressed or improved?
Wow, another good question. So, of course I'm biased. So I believe the answer is, everybody believes this when they get up in the morning, they're a good person. So I also believe that it's improved. So it would be hard for me not to say anything else. And I think it's true. I think if we had closed up shop and we had said, okay, the president has encouraged us to do social distancing. And if at that point, if we had just turned the lights off and said, okay, everybody work from home and let's just bunker down and just wait this out, I think what would have happened is we would have had a much more challenging relationship with the local business community. The fact that we said, okay, we're going to respect social distancing, but we're going to encourage curbside pickup. We're going to do the Rapid City to Go page. We jumped in and we designed a loan program that I know you're working with, Mitch, in basically 2 days for these emergency bridge loan programs. We moved all of our events online and educated businesses on everything from how to do curbside pickup, what's your liability, to having somebody from the SBA talk about these loans directly to businesses. The fact that we did it while respecting social distancing, I think sent a message to the business community that we are still doing everything we can, that Elevate is in the fight. We're going to get in the arena. Again, we're going to try to do it safely, but we're not stopping our role in trying to elevate the region. I think that sent the right message to the business community. So far, we've heard a lot of positive results about, hey, thanks for keeping the good fight. Thanks for thinking of us. Thanks for promoting the business community. Thanks for continuing to do what you're doing. So far, it's been pretty good. And I think it was the right move to really come to that. And it wasn't, we all talk about leadership. It wasn't me just saying, hey, I've got this magic idea. Let's do this, and this, and it's going to turn out great. it was bringing the team together and saying, okay, what should we do, and getting ideas from everybody. So it was just me saying, okay, I think that's a good idea. Let's try to do that.
All right. And Helen's got a question that kind of will close us out, I think, on that same topic. In your opinion, Tom, what is our community missing or not leveraging to support entrepreneurship? Is there a segment of business that we should be focused on to develop during this time?
Well, for the coronavirus, I think if we're talking about just coronavirus, I think it would be that supply chain of businesses that could make products that are essential. So everything from, masks and gloves and hand sanitizer, those things. So that's a sort of supply chain issue there. That's the sort of essential business supply chain that you're seeing. So that's the crisis part of business development. And so we're seeing businesses and universities try to get in to see, how could they, and 3D printing, we're seeing that happen. It'll be interesting to see how that works itself out in 90 days when there's not a pandemic again, or 120 days or 6 months from now when there's not a pandemic and the market's not asking for that. Will there still be the need for those things? Will the market still want those things? Will the market still want to ramp up and stockpile? Will there be the same need? So right now, everybody's saying we need this. The market's reacting to it, and businesses are trying to do that. Will there be that same market demand for those services? I think post-virus, that's something that I think remains to be seen. So we've got to be flexible there. But with respect to your long-term question around entrepreneurship, I think, I had an old banker 20 years ago tell me, every time I would try to do a micro loan, everybody would come in the door, I'd want to do a loan, because I wanted to solve a problem. And he would always slow me down. He'd say, hey, Tom, listen, a good idea will find capital. And he was right. I've yet to find a business owner that had a good product or service and had a good team that couldn't find capital, even if they were in, Wall, South Dakota. Good ideas will find capital. So I think there's this sense sometimes that capital is the barrier to entrepreneurship, and it really isn't. I think we have the ability to access capital here or find it, take those good ideas and access capital. I think that's one piece. But I think the piece that still is something we can work on, and I think this is one of the reasons why Bunker Labs is such an important cog in what we're trying to do, is these networks and these mentors. So government and nonprofits can only go so far in facilitating entrepreneurship. So Mitch can have a building, we can do subsidized rents, and we can have an accelerator, we can offer services and training, but it's still not the real world and real markets real time. So getting access to a bench, if you will, or a team of mentors, and we have a lot of them in the Black Hills, and I know, Mitch, you know some of them too, being able to access people who have done this before, real entrepreneurs, real companies, and bring them in to mentor others, and expanding that network, I think, is the next place we need to go here in Rapid City. If you look at successful ecosystems, they really do expand those weak ties. There's two kinds of ties. There's strong ties, which are really dense, mostly family and friends. They're internal, like this. And there's weak ties, which are external to the community. So I think it's our job, mine and Mitch's and others in the community, to try to figure out how can we find those mentors who have been to other places that can access ideas, that have done these things, bring them to Rapid City, help entrepreneurs who are already here go through that process. And we've had some success already with a guy like Todd Gagney and Property Meld. I know you were able to introduce them together, and now he's mentoring that company, and they've gone from 3 employees to 40 before the crisis. So more things like that. We know right now there are CEOs, C-level executives, middle management executives who are living in the Black Hills. They have second and third homes, and they're just waiting for us to ask them to be mentors. And so building that network of mentors, bringing in concepts, tying to other networks through weak ties across the country, that's something that I think we've got a real opportunity.
Thank you very much. So, part of our normal Bunker Brews, a big part of it is the networking opportunity and meeting like-minded individuals. Today, we've got about 30 of us on here that are like-minded about economic development, about entrepreneurship and things like that. So I want to point out a chat that Catherine just posted about wanting to focus on next-gen battery production. Here's what I ask you to do while I close this out. I'm going to take about 4 minutes to close this out. There's 30 of us on here. I want you to real quick leave a sentence about what it is you're doing what you need or what you can do to help, either now or in the future. John from Dakota Optics, Justin from Fresh Talent, Ed from 7400. Sorry, those are the ones I can remember. I don't have the participants list in front of me now, but just real quick chat what it is you've got going, and let's just network that way while I close this out. So thanks again. Sorry, I can't hand this to you. We'll wipe this down, but Tom, for speaking for us today, we'd like to give you your very own Bunker Labs coffee cup. Oh, you got a wipe right there. So thanks so much. I won't shake your hand, but I appreciate it. I'll give you a round of applause.
Thank you, everybody.
Not muted. Thank you all you for tuning into this virtual event. It's looking like we'll probably do this again virtually in May, so stay tuned for what that looks like. We encourage you all to lean on the support of Bunker Labs and each other. Please feel free to reach out to any of us. I'm going to ask the admin team to put all the links into the chat, as well as all that. There we go. There we go now. Veterans in Residence, Launch Lab Online, how to get a hold of us. I want to point out that one of our national Bunker Labs teammates has been curating 10-minute interviews for our All In campaign. And they actually watched one last night. They're really good. Two things there. Go watch a couple of those, and then get a hold of us if you are interested in maybe being a part of one of those, because there's more opportunity there. That link is up on your screen right now, and we can get those in the chat as well. Let's see. We'd love your feedback on this virtual event today. So get your QR code reader out. You can scan that right with your camera. It'll also be in the chat. We'll also send out a follow-up email from everybody. Let's see. Got all the links there. And finally, we're 2 minutes from the end, but we've got time here. So I'm going to leave the chat up for a while. We're probably going to mute everybody. Please feel free to continue to click on those links, save those links. They're coming in as we speak. Please feel free to keep networking. The chat's not going to go away just yet, so take the time right now and copy and paste. Go out to Bunker Labs Launch Lab Online right now. Sign up. It takes you 2 minutes, and you can start those modules. Tom, anything last you want to say?
We don't, other than just thanks to Bunker Labs for what you guys do and have the opportunity again. You know, we're only going to do this if we work together. And whether it's the coronavirus crisis or entrepreneurship in general, together we do much better. And so we need all the help we can get, and we really appreciate what you guys do.
Yeah, so thanks everybody. Keep the chats coming in. I see they're coming in. Please share with everybody. Take this opportunity to connect with people that might be able to help you in your business, or you can help them in their business. Again, we want your feedback. And with that, we're going to close out for today and look for us in May. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. Just wanted to say thanks from Bunker Labs tech department here, and appreciate your patience with everything. We will leave everything going so you can put your chat in, like Mitch suggested, which is fantastic. That's a real key value that we try to bring, is connecting our communities. We will also put together a follow-up email for those of you that joined, and those that couldn't make it. We'll let them know what they missed. Thanks again, and we really appreciate your feedback. Take care.